Somehow I'm doing this yet again. A couple of days ago we hit 900 subscribers, and if this isn't your first video you're watching of mine, you'll know that that is 100 new subscribers in just over a week. Thank you all so much, and thank you to my buddy infamous Sir Hellfire for spreading the love after his well-deserved big moment. I really did appreciate the shout out, mate. We're on the final stretch to 1k, which is insane to me that we got here so quickly. Again, thank you and enjoy today's video. When I think of Insomniac games, many games come to mind. The original Spyro trilogy, Ratchet and Clank, Resistance, and of course, Spider-Man. But a game that does not get talked about all that much is Sunset Overdrive. Sunset Overdrive, much like Alan Wake, has been a game I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and I thought it was about time I got around to revisiting it for the channel. The reason I've always wanted to talk about Sunset Overdrive is because it has always been a game I've looked back on with such love and admiration. It was actually the game that sold me the Xbox One once I got my first job and realized I could now buy things. When I think of games that are just fun, like really fun, a game so fun that if you look the word up in the dictionary, boom, there's a picture of Sunset Overdrive. At least that's what I remember from when I was 17 years old. It's been a while since I last played the game, and nostalgia goggles are a real thing. So how does Sunset Overdrive hold up today? Sunset Overdrive began its early stages of development shortly after the completion of Resistance 3 in 2011, as the game's creative directors Drew Murray and Marcus Smith began brainstorming ideas for a new IP. They had a rough concept of inspirations when they approached Ted Price, Insomniac's CEO, with the project, but failed to initially generate interest. And here's a quote they got in response to their first presentation. Asked to come back in a week to explain how the game would actually play, and when this presentation took place as Murray and Smith explained their vision of the game in a more focused way, the project was greenlit internally. Unfortunately for the team working on the game, there was a bit of confusion surrounding what the direction of the game would be initially, as the tagline used to sell the project to the higher-ups was the rock and roll end times, which some members of the team thought meant, oh, we're making Brutal Legend. It didn't take long though for Murray and Smith to properly communicate their vision for the awesome apocalypse to the team, and they began to really run with the idea. Now, all they needed was a publisher, which is where Microsoft came into the picture. Insomniac began to pitch the game to a number of different publishers, but were adamant on retaining brand ownership, which caused a lot of publishers to opt out. But Microsoft was excited to work with Insomniac and vice versa, so they let Insomniac keep ownership of the IP, but the game needed to be an Xbox One exclusive, which the team knew would be a massive shock to longtime fans of the studio. The team did agree to these terms, and now with a publisher, Insomniac could really begin work on Sunset Overdrive, which they would soon find out would be the biggest game the studio would work on so far, due to it being their first open world game. In the initial brainstorming stage of development, Sunset Overdrive was conceived as an open world survival game taking inspiration from DayZ, and from this concept the game didn't feature the traversal system or unusual weapons we would end up getting in the final version. This early concept was much more grounded and real compared to what we would end up with. The change of direction for Sunset Overdrive didn't arrive until the team watched the music video for On Melancholy Hill by the Gorillaz, and it was here Murray gave up on the idea of a realistic survival game and got the team to begin work on prototyping new ideas. With the new direction for the game, a big source of inspiration were from games like Prince of Persia, Jet Set Radio, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, as they began to work on the game's traversal system and wanted to put a real emphasis on momentum. This traversal system would end up being a core pillar of the game's design, ensuring everything the player is doing revolves around how much momentum you can maintain, with Smith comparing the gameplay to pinball machines where each movement has consequences. The traversal and shooting were originally separate, however, until the team realized well, it's fun to skate and shoot stuff. And this combination ended up affecting the game's world design, ensuring at any moment you can keep finding ways to increase the game's speed. Insomniac wanted to have a post-apocalyptic world, but not return to a setting much like we saw in Resistance 3. They wanted to ensure this apocalypse was fun, hence the term Awesomepocalypse, changing the usual dark, gritty environments of the genre into a playground for the player, and they wanted this mantra to come through in not only the gameplay, but the art style, the story, and the humour, wanting the game to be as self-aware as possible, and ensuring that the mainstay Insomniac humour was really present in this game, after they strayed from their formula in their previous game, Fuse. Sunset Overdrive was announced at E3 2013, and after 3 years of development, the game released in October 2014, to great reception, but the exclusivity to the Xbox One did hurt the game at launch due to the Xbox One's lack of popularity. And whilst no numbers have been released, the celebration of games that is Sunset Overdrive was soon forgotten by many. As I said in the beginning though, this game sold me the Xbox One, and I loved it back in 2014, so how does it hold up in 2020? Sunset Overdrive is set in the year 2027, as the game begins with Fizzco releasing a new energy drink called Overcharge, exclusively in Sunset City. Fizzco wanted to sell Overcharge faster, and so skipped health regulation protocols, which leads to the drink being toxic to anyone who drinks it, and transforms them into violent, pus-filled mutants. I'll ignore that this sounds like I'm describing a teenager. Known as an overcharged drinker, or OD for short. To cover this disaster up, Fizzco claims a viral outbreak has occurred and quarantines Sunset City to prevent anyone from learning of this royal fuck-up. The player, a former Fizzco employee in the sanitation division, is saved from the OD, and now we need to either escape the city or at least stop ourselves from being nuked. We learn the hard way that the city has an invisible wall as we try to escape via helicopter, and to stop Fizzco from destroying the city, the player rallies the 4 factions we've met throughout the city to attack their headquarters, where a weapon is being held to destroy the city. The player rides a giant bottle of Overcharge into the HQ, and we are killed in the blast and are mourned by our allies. But the player isn't happy with this ending and changes it, this time surviving the blast, but the HQ is actually a massive Fizzco robot that is meant to destroy the city. We destroy this robot, everyone celebrates, but after the credits see Fizzco helicopters leaving the city with Overcharge to send it to the rest of the world. Yeah, that's the main story, and I know it seems like I rushed through all of this, but I really didn't. The story really gets a setup and a conclusion in terms of main plot, and everything in between with the separate factions is really just revolving around trying to get them to help you out. But even with the story not being the main focus, it sets up a great world to be in. Sunset Overdrive's dialogue, characters, and focus on the fourth wall breaking humor is great. This is a funny game.
Brill cream is in a garbage truck, but they didn't know where.
Garbage truck, huh? And the whole garbage system is automated. The trucks are equipped with GPS transmitters. If you come back to our base, I might be able to figure out a way to track it down.
Okay, cool. I'm on my way. Wait, how do we communicate with Sam when neither of us is holding a phone?
Technology.
Technology.
Let's not complicate things by poking holes in the way we deliver the story, okay?
Oh, okay then. I'm gonna go back to the base and be magically gone by the time you have control.
Fine by me. That's not weird at all.
Now personally, I do enjoy a good fourth wall breaking moment, but it is really hard to pull off in terms of games, especially when a game points out how you are doing the same thing again. The game is jam-packed full of references.
No, you're right, Mother. My fault. I forgive you, dear. I love you, Mother.
And I love you, Herbert, forever and ever.
After this quest, I'm gonna...
Here's your weapon.
I hope you like it, dear.
including a bunch I probably didn't pick up on. And the world is just so much fun to experience because of these references and the game's outright weirdness in its own right, like the Boy Scout Samurais or the LARPers. The story of Sunset City is so much fun to experience, even if some of the cutscenes did break on me towards the end.
I know you're all wondering why I called you here tonight. Take a look around. All of this will be yours someday.
Which is a shame because the cutscenes are really well done and I'm not sure what happened here, but overall the story is a good time. But the gameplay is where Sunset Overdrive truly shines in my opinion. This game is fast paced, action packed, silly, good old fashioned fun. Sunset Overdrive is a game all about maintaining your momentum, keeping a high speed at all times, because when you don't, your enemies don't mess around and you will quickly disintegrate. But then you get to see the vast variety of respawns, which is pretty worthwhile too. The best way I can describe Sunset Overdrive is, it's the floor is lava the video game. This game isn't easy to maintain momentum, but once you touch the ground, you need to start all over again with building your speed back up. You never feel like you can get complacent because the game, especially in terms of the defending missions, really tests your mental capacity, or at least it tested mine. I struggle doing more than one thing at a time, and in Sunset Overdrive you have to pay attention to where you can keep your speed going, whether that be grind bars, bouncing objects, walls to run on, and then on top of that, where is it safe, where are the enemies, what enemies need your immediate attention, where are your traps you've set, and what weapons do you have that you can quickly access. These defense missions are a true test of how well you've prepared. But even missions as you progress through the story involve more variety in terms of having OD, gang members and Physco robots all at once, making sure you know, hey, move around dummy. I mean, I love the game's traversal system so much, I think I fast traveled maybe twice in the whole game. You can get really far pretty quickly by just being sporadic with your movement combos. The game is chaotic, but you are controlling the chaos, and that's where the weapons come into play. This is where Insomniac's experience with Ratchet and Clank really shows itself, because the weapons for the most part are wholeheartedly unique. I mean, you have a shotgun shaped like a dick that fires fire shells, a gun that shoots out acid sprinklers, my personal favourite, a boomerang gun, a teddy bear launcher, a gun that shoots fireworks, or a gun that shoots records, amongst a variety of others, and they all have a rating against certain enemy types, so there is no gun effective on all enemies, meaning you are swapping between weapons almost as much as you are changing what you are using to maintain your speed. We do get amps for our weapons that act as a ways to increase a weapon's usage. Like my go-to weapon of the acid sprinkler had an ice amp attached, so not only would the acid melt away enemies, but it would also stop them in their tracks so I could bombard them with other weapon fire. The game also has some of my favourite boss fights, not in terms of difficulty, but in terms of being fun and funny. My personal favourite would be at the end of the LARPers storyline, where we fight on a roller coaster. It makes sense because of the traversal system, and I mean, it's a roller coaster, it's just a fun experience. But in terms of missions, when you need to create a sword and end up creating the most badass sword of all time, yeah, that was a mission that stood out amongst the rest as being the most epic by far. Now, when you're not completing missions or quests, the game is quite a collectathon affair. Like, there's a lot of stuff to find, and whilst that style of gameplay isn't my go-to favorite, they do entice you to collect them so you can create the different amps, and they are all surrounding the traversal system in some way, which you are doing anyway, and there is something about seeing a Physco balloon, toilet paper, or stink shoes that just made me say over and over again, it's on the way, may as well go grab it. It just breaks up the chaos enough to make it feel like a quick little breather in a game filled with madness. The character creator is another source of fun, like in many games that include this feature, even if sometimes it interferes with a cutscene. Again though, an aspect of games that I rarely talk about is the soundtrack. it's incredible here. It really adds the feeling of speed, chaos, and matches the flow of the game so well because it encourages you to keep that high pace going. It's a badass soundtrack that is one of the few I could listen to without playing the game. Really, in terms of complaints, the missions can be a little samey at times. A lot of go here, collect this, and come back with some sort of fourth wall breaking acknowledging this, but other than that, I really don't have much else to say. Sunset Overdrive is a fun game through and through due to its uniqueness of really the whole game. Even the DLC, for as short as it is, they are both bonkers in the best way and change the location between an oil rig and Fizco factory, and they are just both fun as hell. Whether you're traversing the city or fighting off enemies or both, it is an absolute blast to play Sunset Overdrive to this day. Sunset Overdrive holds up today. I made that super obvious throughout, but in case you needed a recap. The story isn't much, but the world of Sunset City and the characters within are interesting to say the least. The gameplay is an almost constant feeling of chaos, but that's chaos you feel like you are controlling with chaining movements, weapons, and traps together. And really, for a first attempt at an open world game, this is a great start. Really, a lot of what Insomniac did with Sunset Overdrive makes all the sense in the world that they would go on to also make a Spider-Man game down the line, even if the player here feels more like Deadpool. The game is fun, funny, chaotic, crazy, and if you haven't played this game, you really need to. It still remains one of my favorite games of this current generation of consoles, and I hope to someday see a Sunset Overdrive 2.